The Beach by Alex Garland. Chapter 1. Boom, boom. Vietnam, me love you long time. All day, all night. Me love you long time. Delta 19er. This is Alpha Patrol. We on the northeast face of Hill 705 and taking fire. I repeat, taking fire. Immediate air assistance required on the fucking double. Can you confirm? Radio static. I say again, this is Alpha Patrol and we're taking fire. Immediate air assistance required. Can you confirm? We are taking fire. Please confirm. We are incoming. Boom. Medic dropping acid on the Mekong Delta, smoking grass through a rifle barrel, flying on a helicopter with opera blasting out of the loudspeakers, trace of fire and paddy-filled scenery, the smell of napalm in the morning, long time. Yeah, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. For my name is Richard. I was born in 1974. Bangkok. Beach. The first time I heard of the beach was in Bangkok, on the Koh San Road. The Koh San Road was backpacker land. Almost all the buildings had been converted to guest houses. There were long-distance telephone booths with aircon. The cafes showed brand new Hollywood films on video, and you couldn't walk 10 feet without passing a bootleg tape stall. The main function of the street was as a decompression chamber for those about to leave or enter Thailand, a halfway house between the east and the west. I'd landed at Bangkok in the late afternoon, and by the time I got to Koh San, it was dark. My taxi driver winked and told me that at one end of the street was a police station, so I asked him to drop me off at the other end. I wasn't planning on crime, but I wanted to oblige his conspiratorial charm. Not that it made much difference at which end one stayed, because the police obviously weren't active. I caught the smell of grass as soon as I got out of the cab, and half the travelers weaving past me were stoned. The driver left me outside a guest house with an eating area open to the street. As I studied it, checking the clientele to gauge what kind of place it was, a thin man at the table nearest me leaned over and touched my arm. I glanced down. He was, I guessed, one of the heroin hippies that float around India and Thailand. He'd probably come to Asia 10 years ago and turned an occasional dabble into an addiction. His skin was old, though I'd believed he was in his 30s. The way he was looking at me, I had the feeling I was being sized up as someone to rip off. What? I said wearily. He pulled an expression of surprise and held up the palms of his hands. Then he curled his finger and thumb into O-shaped perfection sign and pointed into the guest house. It's a good place? He nodded. I looked again at the people around the tables. They were mostly young and friendly looking, some watching TV and some chattering over their dinner. Okay. I smiled at him in case he wasn't a heroin addict, but just a friendly mute. I'm sold. He returned the smile and turned back to the video screen. Quarter of an hour later, I was settling into a room that was a little larger than a double bed. I can be accurate about it because there was a double bed in the room, and on each of its 4 sides there was a foot of space. My bag couldn't just slide into the gap. One wall was concrete, the side of the building. The others were formica and bare. They moved when I touched them. I had the feeling that if I leaned against one, it would fall over and maybe hit another, and all the walls of all the neighboring rooms would collapse like dominoes. Just short of the ceiling, the walls stopped, and across the space was a strip of metal mosquito netting. The netting almost upheld the illusion of being in a confined personal area until I lay down on my bed. As soon as I relaxed, I began to hear the cockroaches scuttling around in the other rooms. At my end, I had a French couple in their late teens, a beautiful, slim girl with a suitably handsome boy attached. They had been leaving their room as I got to mine, and we exchanged notes as we passed in the corridor. The other end was empty. Through the netting, I could see that the light was off, and anyway, if it had been occupied, I would have heard the person breathing. It was the last room on the corridor, so I presumed it faced the street and had a window. On the ceiling was a fan, strong enough on full setting to stir the air. For a while I did nothing but lie on the bed and look up at it. It was calming, following the revolutions, and with a mixture of heat and soft breeze, I felt I could drift to sleep. That suited me. West to east is the worst for jet lag, and I wanted to fall into the right sleeping pattern on the first night. I switched off the light. Enough of a glow from the corridor outside came through for me to still see the fan. Soon, I was asleep. Once or twice I was aware of people in the corridor, and I thought I heard the French couple coming back, then leaving again. But the noises never woke me fully, and I was always able to slip back into the dream I'd been having before, until I heard the man's footsteps. They were different, too creepy to doze through. They had no rhythm or weight and dragged on the floor. A muttered stream of English swear words floated into my room as he jiggled the padlock on his door. Then there was a loud sigh. The lock opened with a click, and his light came on. The mosquito netting cast a patterned shadow on my ceiling. Frowning, I looked at my watch. It was 2 a.m. Late afternoon, English time. I wondered if I might get back to sleep. The man slumped onto his bed, giving the wall between us an alarming shake. He coughed a while, then I heard the crack of a joint being rolled. Soon, there was a blue smoke caught in the light rolling through the netting. Aside from the occasional deep exhalation, he was silent. I drifted back to sleep, almost. "Bitch," said a voice. I opened my eyes. "Fucking bitch. We both as good as..." The voice paused for a coughing fit. "Dead." I was wide awake now, so I sat up in bed. "Cancer in the corals, blue water, my bitch, fucking Christ did me in," the man continued. He had an accent, but at first my sleep-forged head couldn't place it. "Bitch," he said again, spitting out the word, a Scottish accent. "Bitch." There was a scrabbling sound on the wall. For a moment, I thought he might be trying to push it over, and I had a vision of myself being sandwiched between the formica board and the bed. Then his head appeared through the mosquito net, silhouetted, facing me. "Hey," he said. I didn't move. I was sure I couldn't see into my room. "Hey, I know you're listening. In there, I know you're awake." He lifted up a finger and gave the netting an exploratory poke. It popped away from where it was stapled to the formica. His hand stuck through. "Here!" A glowing red object sailed through the darkness, landing on the bed in a little shower of sparkles. The joint he'd been smoking. I grabbed it to stop it from burning the sheets. "Yeah," said the man and laughed quietly. Got you now. I saw you take that bat. For a few seconds, I couldn't get a handle on the situation. I kept thinking, what if I actually had been asleep? The sheets might have caught fire. I might have burned to death. The panic flipped into anger, but I suppressed it. The man was way too much of a random element for me to lose my temper. I could still only see his head, and that was backlit in shadow. Holding up the joint, I asked, "Do you want this back?" "You were listening," he replied, ignoring me. "Had me talking about the beach. You've got a loud voice. Tell me what you had." "I didn't hear anything." "Had nothing?" He paused for a moment, then pressed his face into the netting. "You are lying." "No, I was asleep. You just woke me up when you threw this joint at me." "You were listening," he hissed. "I don't care if you don't believe me. I don't believe you." "Well, I don't care. Look." I stood on the bed so our heads were at the same level and held up the joint to the hole he had made. "If you want this, take it. All I want is to go to sleep." As I lifted my hand, he pulled back, moving out of the shadow. His face was flat like a boxer's. The nose busted too many times to have any form, and his lower jaw was too large for the top half of his skull. It would have been threatening if not for the body it was attached to. The large jaw tapered into a neck so thin it seemed incredible that it supported his head, and his t-shirt hung slightly on coat-hanger shoulders. Past him, I saw into his room. There was a window, as I'd assumed, but he tapped it up with pages from a newspaper. Apart from that, it was bare. His hand reached through the gap and plucked the bat from my fingers. "Okay," I said, thinking I'd gained some kind of control. "Now leave me alone." "Okay," I said, thinking I'd gained some kind of control. "Now leave me alone." "No," he replied flatly. "No?" "No." "Why no? What do you want something?" "Yep." He grinned. "I want lots, and that's why." Again he pushed his way into the netting. "I won't leave you alone." But as soon as he said it, he seemed to change his mind. He ducked out of sight, obscured by the angle of the wall. I stayed standing for a couple of seconds, confused but wanting to reinforce my authority. Like it wasn't me stepping down, just him. Then I had him relight his joint. I let that mark the end of it and lay back down on the bed. Even after he'd switched his light off, 20 or so minutes later, I still couldn't get back to sleep. I was too keyed up. Too much stuff was running through my head. Beaches and beaches, exhaustion, jumpy with adrenaline. Perhaps given an hour of silence, I might have relaxed. But soon after the man's light went out, the French couple came back to their room and started having sex. It was impossible, hearing their panting and feeling the vibrations of their shifting bed, not to visualize them. The brief glimpse of the girl's face I'd caught in the corridor was stuck in my head, an excited face. Dark skin and dark hair, brown eyes, full lips. After they'd finished, I had a powerful urge for a cigarette. Empathy maybe, but I stopped myself. I knew that if I did, they would hear me rustling the packet or lighting the match. The illusion of their privacy would be broken. Instead, I concentrated on lying. as still as I could for as long as I could. It turned out I could do it for quite a while.